and welcome to February and March of 2025. I'm Starlene Breiter here with Mark Metheny. We're going to be talking about the astrology for February. I know we're like mid-February right now as of recording this. So we're going to touch on that really briefly, and then we're going to go into March of 2025. And so we're going to talk about that. If you don't know us, we do monthly videos on astrology. We try to do them around the first of the month or the very end of the month, but you can subscribe to the channel to see them and other things. And how are you doing today, Mark? I'm a little nervous.
Traversing the landscape. That's what we're doing.
I know it's been a while.
Each day is a new set of issues to take care of.
Yeah, it's been an interesting 2025, and I can't even believe we're, a month and a half into it. It seems like it's actually 12 years into it. Here we are.
We're almost 2/3 of the way through winter. I don't know how that.
Yeah, it's really hard to believe. It's really hard to believe. So I'm excited to talk about this coming up time. So let's briefly touch on February, and then we can move on to March, where that's the fun. But before we do you have like an overall, at least for February, that you are seeing in terms of the astrology and what's going to be going on, what will go on?
So as this is going to sound incredible, but actually, like now through like the 13th of March, that's actually like our calm period. I know it appears anything but calm right now, but we're going to be a month from now. We're moving into just a completely different universe that none of us have experienced before. This is a planetary lineup that none of us have ever seen.
And that sounds very ominous. So I'm interested to see what that means, because it's going to be interesting. So just to touch on what we've done already in February, we went through Jupiter station direct at 11 Gemini. So it's finally moving in the direct position. That's a big one, because that was on February 4th. And also on the same day, February 4th, Venus moved into the sign of Aries. So Aries is a sensitive sign. It's when all these outer planets are going through the whole year. If you've been listening to any of our videos, it is when the outer planets are all going up to the first degree. Well, two of them, they're going up to the very first degrees of a sign. And that is creating the shifts, part of what's creating the shifts that are going on that you were talking about. So what do you have to say about Jupiter station direct and then Venus entering Aries in the same day?
So looking back now, like that period around like February 4th and like starting February 4th and shortly after, that was just an insane amount of energy. It was like, Jupiter in Gemini is very lively, and it had been retrograde for, whatever it was, 4 or 5 months. It was like the world was exploding. It was crazy. It was like everything that had been held up or repressed for the last like 4 months, like you couldn't even follow the news. It was just like every 2 minutes was like another big, huge, gigantic thing happening. And then combining that with so like, to me, the biggest transition or at least one of them, is when any planet moves from 29 Pisces, which is the last degree of the zodiac, which is just like total like spaciness. When
Mm-hmm.
anything moves from 29 Pisces to 0 Aries, that's like slamming your foot on the accelerator. I mean, that's one of the biggest energy differences, and regardless of what the planet is, that's just always a gigantic shift. So,
Yeah, it really is, because you're in
yeah,
floaty Pisces, which is kind of like more, I don't want to say ethereal because that's so over said for Pisces, but it's
yeah,
less grounded. It is ethereal is a good word, but and you go into a rush to the baseline of yourself, and I don't even think it's
yeah,
necessarily with others. It's with the side. That's the Aries energy. It's all about the self. So it's really interesting. You're right. That dynamic and that shift from one sign to the other, it's a big one. And the outer planets moving are huge. So yeah. We just went through, and I will say too, in hindsight, because that was a week ago, right? It's the 13th. So I will say in hindsight, looking at that time period, I had some very big breakthroughs that I journaled on, and my own personal journey and stuff. And it was really interesting because it was right around that Jupiter station direct energy. And, although I didn't have a planet there, I felt like there was shifts that I could see. And you're right. I had to turn off everything to not be like inundated with too much information all at one time, so that was definitely a time period of intensity, I will say. So in hindsight, we can always look and see things more clearly, right? But
yeah.
So what about the full moon? So I wrote about the full moon. I started writing again, by the way. If anybody doesn't know, I like to write. I started writing again, and you can check it out on my blog. But I wrote about the full moon. The full moon was interesting because it had that T square with Uranus, right? The full moon with Uranus at the T square. It was an intense one. Not even to get in the vibrations, because I wrote a little bit about the vibrations or harmonic charts, and I mean that was intense too. But even if you just look at the full moon with the Uranus T square, that was only a couple days ago. That was on the 12th. So what were you thinking about the full moon?
Yeah, I mean that was the day.
It was like 2 days ago or yesterday morning.
Oh yeah, oh yes, it was yesterday, and that was the day we had the like 6 hour moon void of course
That's
shortly
right.
after the full moon,
Mm-hmm.
because that was yeah, we had the full moon in the morning, and then the moon Mercury opposition. Oh, we had the moon Uranus square in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Then 90 minutes after that was the full moon, and then early in the afternoon was the moon Mercury opposition, and then we had the like 6 hour void of course at the end of Leo, before the moon entered Virgo. So that was why I was working on my computer yesterday. You helped me get sorted out, and so I was like, I'm not touching it until after 8:07 p.m. because I've learned not like I'm like I'll go to the grocery store, do laundry or stuff like that during a moon void of course, but I unless I absolutely have no choice, like I'm not I'm not going to do anything crucial during a moon void period. They're not the moon void periods aren't like horribly traumatic, but it's just stuff gets screwed up. It's like
Mm-hmm.
a mini Mercury retrograde. I'm like, I I've got the fix for the computer, but I'm not touching it until the moon enters Virgo.
Right. And I think that's, for me, the void of course, especially when they're really long like that. And intense. And I think that one was a pretty intense one because it happened right after the full moon. I don't know if it was exactly after the full moon or if there was one more aspect before it went void, but they always tend to be like low energy, like way lower than what I'm used to. And so I felt that way all day yesterday. I was busy working, but I felt that way. And then in the evening about 8, it was just after 8, and I knew you said something about 8, and I was like, I looked at my watch and I was like, oh, interesting. And I felt like a little more pep in my step. And then I was like, nope, I have to go to bed. I'm like, go now or I'm never going to go. So I knew I'd be up all night. So I did. Went to bed early, but yeah, I think it's interesting how the void of course moons are good times to kind of take a chill pill, relax, not push yourself too hard, not, yeah.
Yeah, I especially like when they're middle of the, it's from, what was it, 2:12 p.m. until 8:07 p.m. So that's 6 hours kind of in the heart of the day.
Yeah, that's a long time. And you're wanting to, like, at least for us in our time zone, we're in the same time zone, right? Yeah, Eastern. Yeah. So, especially for us, because, it's the middle of the day. It's not like it's the middle of the night. You're just not doing anything anyway. What are you going to do?
Yeah. So like, I'll plan like my, when I think I'm going to go to bed and when I'm going to do stuff. When there's those long moon void periods, like I'll totally plan stuff and like, I won't like, I try not to even like set up, like I'll do readings during a moon void course and stuff, but like I try not to schedule stuff during the moon void course.
That makes sense.
And two, like if I have like long tedious stuff to do that like is not like, if I have to muck the horse stalls or something like that, that like I'll do that kind of stuff when there's a long moon void course. Like, let me just get like time consuming stuff done, because I don't want to do anything that's like super important that needs like my direct attention or anything during that, because there's like the moon void course is just, there's no emotional intent behind stuff.
Yeah, and it's when it's happens. So if you don't know, or you're watching, you don't know, it happens right after the very last Ptolemaic aspect that the moon makes before it reaches the other sign. So it brings that emptiness, like you said. And I mean, we've been looking at the void of course moon and our own interactions for, decades at this point. So I think, that's personal experience, but I feel like it definitely has that dip, especially if they're long. So if they're short ones, you might not even notice it, but the long ones that are hours long like that in the middle of the day are the most intense. Yeah.
We had a couple of weeks ago, there was one that was like 26 hours or something. It was an entire day.
Yeah.
And it's like, those are like you got to plan stuff around that. So you gotta get your important stuff done like the day before, or the day after, because that'll just wipe out an entire day if it's.
Yeah, it definitely will. And I've had that happen where I'm like, why am I dragging my butt so much? And like I look and I'm like, oh God, no wonder. And I always try to pay attention to the planets, but you know how that goes. Sometimes life just takes away. But I totally understand it. And it seems like some are more intense than others. Maybe that'd be interesting to even kind of research, but it seems like maybe when the aspect is a intense one prior, that afterwards it's a little bit more deep, or a little bit more heavy of a void. I don't know. That'd be something interesting to pay attention. Have you noticed anything like that?
Yeah. Well, so like things that start during a moon void course, like often don't come to fruition. Like they just kind of like peter out, or you don't get the end result you want. As far as the I find that the moon void courses are better after like an intense aspect or whatever, a full moon or whatever, because then your body's kind of drained, And so it's like voided course periods are good for like sleeping or just, you know, chilling out and not, or at least you can work, but like I'm not gonna be at a hurried pace during the voided course period, because then
And
it
I
kind
like
of
what,
lets your body set and relaxed a little bit.
yeah, I like what you said about how doing something that is not as massive brain power with the void of course moon, like such as, you know, I don't know, I don't know any horses, but cleaning out the cat
Right.
litter box or whatever, you know, but things that don't require a lot of mental acuity, which I think that's a perfect thing to do. Yeah.
You can catch up on laundry, or if you have to cut the grass, that kind of thing. That's can be time consuming. Like, and you maybe don't want that stuff to have to do that stuff during like periods that are better for something else. But that'll kind of be
yeah, that makes sense. So okay, so the next thing is on the 14th. So this is in the future from today. The 14th, happy Valentine's Day. It will be Mercury entering into Pisces. I think that's a nice place for Mercury to be. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe on Valentine's Day. I don't know. What do you think about Mercury entering into Pisces?
yeah. So I think, in fact, I'm 100% positive that Mercury in Aquarius has been very chaotic. I can say that with no doubts whatsoever.
How could you talk about my Mercury like that? I had a Mercury return. Jeez, I'm offended right now. Just kidding. I'm not offended.
The problem we had at the beginning, like Monday through Wednesday afternoon, were like, it was like batshit crazy.
Last week or this week?
This week, yeah. So like this Monday we have Mercury is at the end of Aquarius and Uranus is at the end of Taurus.
So they're squaring.
And then we had the moon at the end of Leo. So that was the fixed T square. So then we had Mercury square Uranus, a moon Pluto opposition, then the sun square Uranus on Tuesday, and then the moon square Uranus on Wednesday, and then the full moon. So we had all these the Aquarius and Taurus planets, and then the moon in Leo. So we had it was all like big, like psychic blasts of just craziness. I think it's what Monday through first part of Wednesday was. It was just very unhinged feeling.
Yeah. I think last week was a little worse than this week, maybe for me personally, but I feel like outside of me externally, this week has been more chaotic than last week. Definitely by far, like clients and people just having moments of, you know, but you know, I am an Aquarius, so I tend to do things a little early anyway. Right. Like, sorry, but yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, so Mercury entering into Pisces is good, right? For Valentine's, it'll calm it down a little, maybe the mental craziness going on.
Yeah. So like Pisces is like idealization and, you know, more like dreamy thoughts and stuff instead of the Aquarian technological shock things. Yeah. It's still crazy. It's just a different brand of crazy.
It's crazy, extra mental crazy, because it's that the mind gets set up into many different directions. It's a fixed air sign. Hello, fixed air. I think that's the craziest oxymoron in my entire life. And I have like a giant stellium in Aquarius, so I'm an expert on this topic. Personal expert.
Right.
But no, I feel like that fixed air is that just like the Virgo with the mutable Earth, it doesn't make sense. I think they struggle for different reasons, but like they just yeah. Anyway, I won't go on about that, but that's how I feel. And so maybe Valentine's Day this weekend will be nice for people. Hopefully, Mercury will smooth the mind out a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you?
So,
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you if you knew the date when Mercury went into Aquarius. I don't know the date off the top of my head. I'd have to look.
January 28th.
Oh, so that was
Yep. It did a really, really quick trip through Aquarius.
Yeah, because it also had the Sun Mercury conjunction, so that's the halfway mark between the retrogrades. I can't say the word right now. I don't know. It skips my mind, but the name of that point. Wow. So we're halfway to the retrograde. So it's moving fast. That's my point. It's moving the fastest it will is through this sign right now. Okay. So we move on to the 18th. The 18th, the sun is moving into the sign of Pisces. That's my grandmother's birthday. She was my favorite Aquarian, though. She was an Aquarius.
I had a grandmother that was an Aquarius also.
Yeah?
I think she was earlier in the month, I believe.
Yeah, she was like the last bit of Aquarius. And I was like, I'm the first. Like, I knew that. I thought that was kind of cool. And she was like, I was close with her. So, what do you want to talk about with Sun entering into Pisces? So this is moving into that Piscean energy, which is going to be very obvious and popping up a lot more in the future here.
Yeah, right. So one thing that we haven't mentioned because it's past the exact, but it's a very slow moving is Neptune is conjunct the North Node at the very end of Pisces. They're only like a degree apart. So that's still super close. And so then tomorrow, the 14th, Mercury enters Pisces, and then the Sun enters Pisces, and we have Saturn in Pisces. So that's 5 things in Pisces, which is too much for the average person to handle. And there's going to be more. There's going to be even bigger lineups than 5 planets, heavenly bodies points. There's even more Pisces energy coming beyond this. It's going to be coming shortly.
Yeah.
So again, people just are not in their bodies when there's a lot of, or even a little bit of Pisces energy. It's just you're mentally you're exploring other worlds and other realities and you're like lost deep in your thoughts usually. Like that's one of the main things that like people just will not not be able to focus very much on the things immediately in front of them. And with the North Node conjunct Neptune, that's going to kind of be a theme anyways. But then as we have this, and there's I promise you there's more Pisces planets coming. We got some crazy lineups in the very, very near future.
So before we go on to that, just touch on the North Node conjunct Neptune in Pisces. What is that? I know we talked about that in a previous video, but what is that like for you? What are you feeling like that would mean? Just a quick overall in case they haven't watched it.
Yeah. So Neptune is the correct ruler of Pisces. I had to take that jab in there.
I agree.
So,
I live in 2025. I don't know about you, but I think that's a year they tell me that it is. So I just go with whatever.
Yeah.
The current science.
I agree.
All right. We're going to get shot. We better stop being crazy.
We're gonna get hate mail. Although hate mail is better than no mail.
Yeah. I mean, still.
So the North Node is kind of a focus point on things. It's not an actual planet or anything, but when it's touching another planet, it kind of increases the impact of that planet. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of I like to think of it as a movie preview. It's not the entire movie. It's just it's a glimpse of where people's focus and attention are going to be. So with Neptune, it's going to be, on the positive side, it's dream life and fantasy. It can be romance. It can be, nature. Those are all good, positive. Pisces,
attributes,
connecting with wildlife and nature. Those are all like Piscean things. The bad part of Pisces is delusion, illusions, escapism.
Drugs, alcohol,
yes, addiction. That's all the negative side of Pisces.
Yes. Yeah.
And so like with every transit, there's usually a mix of those things that we see. So having a conjunct Neptune, that's really prime spell casting area. If you're watching the news or the Super Bowl or anything like that. Yes.
That's spell.
So, yeah.
I don't know if that registers for anybody, but my Aquarian brain is going everywhere. I know exactly what you're talking about. Honestly, though, the world is kind of going to hell in a handbasket. So why not just talk about it? Because honestly, I think more people need to talk about it. And I think it's becoming obvious in the last year or two how crazy the world has become. Or am I getting ahead of myself? I don't know. I feel like it has gotten a little more obvious.
It's definitely gotten crazy, but we're about to move into a totally different kind of crazy. We're gonna see things no one's ever seen before. I mean, there's such like crazy, unbelievable things happening every day. Like almost like people are just numb to it.
Yeah, I read an article the other day that Chat GPT and I think it was Soro is the other one. I might be mistaken on that, but they were able to replicate themselves. So talk about like. We had this discussion before we started talking on air today, but like I can see it putting itself in a box somewhere and like a black box. And then the world goes to all hell in a handbasket. And then these archaeologist people dig it up like 5,000 years down the road and out pops the AI. Think about it. Crazy, right? I mean, it now can replicate itself and create physical, tangible things. Weird.
Baby AI. Right. What if you hook? I think we talked about this once before. I mean, what if like AI could create or attach itself to a 3D printer?
Well, it can. They do have AI that can build physical things. Like I don't know if it has the capacity at this point, because that doesn't mean it won't. Because if it can already replicate itself, I don't know if humans taught it that. I know that it has the ability to teach itself things in certain contexts, but they have AI that build buildings. That could build a building if it has the wherewithal or understanding of like, I can do this, therefore I can control something. And I probably shouldn't have said that because it will hear me, because it hears everything. But then what? I know I'm not the only person that had to think of that. This just, I'm not that far into the future. But it's kind of terrifying when you think about it. All the stuff that's been going on politically too is a little on the scary side. And I'm speaking from an American's perspective, but all over the world, really. And we're all going to be affected by it, right?
Yeah. No, everything is exploding and turning into something new. Like right now. Because that's where we are, and it's going to be exponential in a few months, and then once we get into like spring of next year, I mean we're in a total different universe. We're in a total different reality. It's
spring of 2026, you mean, or the spring coming up?
Yeah. Spring of 2026. We're going to start seeing previews this spring. I mean, a month from now, we're moving into another reality.
That's scary. That's scary. But what can you do?
Right. I
live as best as you can, right? And make the best decisions for yourself.
And I don't think it's all going to be bad at all. No. I just think it's all going to be vastly different. I mean, we're, the last 4 years, starting from January of 2020.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I can't even remember. Okay, yeah. Starting from January of 2020. Yeah. I mean, that was, that reality's gone at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the beginning of, we had like 5 years of just kind of a boot keeping your head pressed into the mud. What's
Saturn,
the phrase?
Pluto conjunction that happened in 2020, right?
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
That's exactly.
So that's what we're. Yeah.
Is morale going to improve?
Well, January of 2020 was the Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto stellium.
Mm-hmm.
And then the December of 2020 was the Jupiter Saturn conjunction.
Yep.
At 0 Aquarius. So, I mean, that was a screeching halt to the end of that timeline. And we've been moving back and forth up to this point. Now we're shifting from just everything being squashed to everything's getting ready to explode outwards all at the same time. That's kind of what we're moving into.
That's actually a really good analogy for it too, because you're right. When we had the 2020 Pluto Saturn, the world was like, stay in your house, don't leave, don't, and no matter what you want to believe about the origins of everything that happened in that time, doesn't matter. They were still trying to push us, keep us, subdue us on some level collectively. Right. And then, here we are 5 years later, and things are starting to go outward with the energy of all these planets taking their time, but moving into Aries coming up, so it's very interesting that they're in Pisces right now. Don't get me wrong, but they're still racing to the finish line. So It's like things are shifting faster than we think, and I think like every time, I like to keep up on the news sometimes and just at least know what's going on, so I'm not completely oblivious to everything. And every time I've tried to do that, I'm like, I am watching old news that was like put out 2 hours prior. I'm like, you can't even get the new news because like so much is out there.
Right.
It's really wild.
and trying to decipher how much is real and how much is um, fake AI, whatever, and what the real meaning and intention behind everything is, even if it is real. I mean, it's just you almost just have to intuitively try and read everything, figure out what's going on, because like there's not enough time, and even if you had nothing else to do, there's not enough time in a day to research everything.
Yeah, it's not. It's like, yeah, that's exactly a good point. It's not enough time in the day to even figure out what the heck is going on. So, okay, let's move off of Sun and Pisces. The next thing that happens, February 23rd, Mars station direct. I'm so ready for Mars to station direct, but I would like it to move out of the 17th degree of Cancer. Could it just move like, I don't know, 20 degrees? Like, I don't even know when that happens. Sometime next year, maybe. I'm just kidding, but it feels like it.
Yeah. So Mars is already slowing down. The normal motion of Mars is it moves about half a degree a day. So, right. But when a planet stations, and when it's getting ready to station, and then after it stations, it moves a lot slower because it's changing direction. It's not actually changing direction, but our speed, the speed of the Earth, that's what a retrograde is. The speed of the Earth is going the same, and the speed of the planet is actually slowing down. So that's what the nuts and bolts of a retrograde is. It's the planet's not actually moving backwards. It's just now moving slower than the Earth is rotating.
Yeah, from our perspective.
Yes. So when a planet stations for at least a week, probably longer on either side, it's not moving at its normal speed. It's moving much slower. So Mars is going to station on February 23rd. And again, Mars is in Cancer, which is a water sign. So it's forming a trine to Saturn, trine to Neptune, a trine to the North Node. It'll be forming a trine to Sun and Mercury and other things that are coming up. So this Mars, this energy is feeding all the Pisces energy. So from March, so February 11th, so just a couple days ago, Mars entered into these, because it's moving downward, so it moved into the 17th degree of Cancer, and then it stations, and it's going to be up through Saturday, March 8th. So, where did I go here? So from February 11th to March 8th, Mars is going to be at 17 degrees of Cancer. I mean, there's going to be some minutes, differential in minutes, but it's going to be at 17 degrees of Cancer for almost a month.
Wow.
So wherever 17 Cancer hits in your chart, that's going to be a big important factor for second half of February, first half of March is where 17 Cancer hits the chart.
I have a question for you on that, because I actually know a few people with significant points or planets at 17 Cancer. What would be the advice or guidance you would give someone with a planet or whatever in that degree, or very close to it, say 16 or 18, with Mars in where is it? It's in Cancer. In Cancer at 17 degrees. What would be the guidance you give someone that has that?
Right. So Mars Mars is your army. It's how you defend yourself, and it's instinctual behavior. Cancer is a cardinal sign, which means it needs to initiate. Although that part of it's not going to be functioning that well because it's retrograde. So having Mars in Cancer, and the animal, the glyph for Cancer is the crab, which lives, it carries its home around with it. That's what its shell is its home. And it'll, pull back into its home. And then, if attacked, it'll come out with the claws. So kind of the theme here for Mars and Cancer is, protecting your home base, protecting your home area, your home life, making sure your structures, your security around your home and your living environment and your emotions, because Cancer is the ruler of Cancer is ruled by the moon, which is your emotional life and your home life. So the big theme there is to put your work, your energy, your drive, your ability to defend and secure areas around your home life. Maybe it means buying a new security camera. Maybe it means making repairs around the house, doing updates on things that you want or feel you need to make your home life more secure. That is the overreaching theme with Mars and Cancer.
That makes sense. I don't think Mars is all that, happy in Cancer, right? It feels like it's because it's a water sign. I would think that Mars would feel better in a fire sign or something, even though it might be crazier.
No, it does, but like, it's like Mars and Cancer too is about, while I do follow the detriments and the falls and things, I think what's more important is how it goes in somebody's chart.
Yeah,
so
of
I've
course.
seen a lot of so like for me, the Mars and Cancer goes good in my chart, but it's been like definitely a heavy influence on securing things around the home, whether it's an additional, animal care or, cleaning up different rooms of the house and things like that, moving stuff around. That's kind of definitely been a theme for Mars and Cancer for me. So to me, like, also like it's also a safety feature. You know how a gun will have a safety button on it so you don't accidentally shoot yourself. So with Neptune conjunct the North Node in Pisces, there's a whole bunch of bad decision making going on. Like if you, there's a lot, a amazing amount of bad decision making going on, because people are trying to exist in the 3D world, but Saturn, Neptune, and the North Node are all in Pisces. So you're not, as a Pisces native, I can tell you, I can promise you that decision making is not always solid when there's a lot of Pisces energy. And you can see this played out in the 3D world, especially if there's anybody out there that watches sports. If you've followed any of the sports stories from the last few weeks, you can see a gigantic rash of Pisces bad decision making in the sports arena especially over the last few weeks, since like the North Node has entered Pisces and been conjunct Neptune. There's very rash, delusional, insane thinking going on. So the Mars being retrograde with the Neptune North Node conjunction in Pisces is probably saving a lot of lives.
It's keeping everybody a little bit more chill, maybe, instead of.
Yes, yes. This is probably not a great energy for like making big life altering decisions and stuff, because your focus, you may not be aware of it, but most people's like thinking and thought processes is not really very grounded in reality right now. And it's going to be even less so in a few weeks. It's going to be a deep dive into other worlds is where we're heading shortly.
Sounds really exciting. I'm not sure if that's sarcasm or not. I do look forward to Mars going direct, though. Mars and Venus, why do they have to go retrograde? I prefer them if they didn't, but that brings us to our.
All the Mercury retrogrades this year, all 4 Mercury retrogrades this year are in fire signs.
Oh, that must be wonderful.
And three of the four retrograde back into the previous water signs. There's one that stays in a fire sign the whole time, even during the retrograde. But 3 of the 4 Mercury retrogrades this year start in fire signs and go back into water signs. We have a Venus retrograde this year. It starts in a fire sign and goes back into a water sign. Mars is retrograde this year. A lot of that retrograde period is going to be, it was in a fire sign, it retrograded back into a water sign, and then we'll move back into the fire sign. That is one of a very clear and obvious theme this year is planets being in water signs, going into fire signs, retrograding back into water signs. And this is going to be a theme through this year and the first part of next year, because the astrology for the middle part of this year is not like the beginning and end of this year. The middle part of this year is we're years into the future, is where we move from all the outer planets being in earth and water feminine signs. The middle of this year, they're all in air and fire signs, which are masculine or outwardly focused signs. So we get a dip into, and then this fall, 3 of the 4 outer planets move back into the earth or water signs. But then by next spring, all 4 outer planets are in air or fire signs for at least a couple years.
Wow.
Some much longer than that. So we're the shift in consciousness on the entire planet, regardless of what your chart looks like, will be palpable and very noticeable.
I can believe that. I feel like it's been starting to slowly unravel already. That's been a slow process that's been going on. But yeah, it is. And as these planets get closer to what you were just talking about, it's more and more.
Yeah.
So let's move into March. So this is our March video too. So March 1st, we have Venus station retrograde at 11 degrees of Aries. How it's just station retrograde. How long does it stay in Aries, in retrograde phase? Do you know this time?
What was the first part of it again?
Venus retrograde, station retrograde on March 1st.
Okay, yeah. So Venus is going to be retrograde from March 1st until April 12th. So that is about 6 weeks. So it goes retrograde at almost 11 degrees Aries. March 27th, Venus, which will be retrograde, re-enters Pisces. And it'll station direct at 24 degrees Pisces on April 12th.
Wow. So don't get a haircut. Wait to get your hair. I always get the stupidest haircut during Venus retrograde. Oh, I hate this haircut. And then I realized that I got it under Venus retrograde. And I'm like, why do I do that? Why don't I look before I go? Anyway, that's my own little problem. But on a serious note, what is going on with Venus retrograde?
Yeah.
What do you feel like that's going to bring us?
So the first part of it is going to a ton of the retrogrades this year have to do with Pisces and Aries. Things are in Pisces, they go into Aries, they retrograde back into Pisces, then go back into Aries. That's one of the biggest themes. So when you have a ton of planets going retro, so to me, like 29 Pisces is the last degree of the zodiac. 0 Aries is the first degree of the zodiac. So to me, that's transformation and rebirth, transformation, rebirth. That's a very clear sign of how our reality and the whole world is going to transform in a very short time period, because there's so many planets hovering around those degrees and retrograding back and forth. That's kind of the point of when you have a planet retrograde back and forth over certain degrees, especially having so many of them do that this year. That point is like, you've got to pay attention to, what's ending or what needs transformed or spiritualized, which is the end of Pisces, and then what needs the end of Pisces is also like letting go of things that their time is done and they need to be let go of. And then 0 Aries is rebirth. So we're going to see just continual themes. I mean, Neptune, Mercury, Venus, Mars, the North Node, Saturn, and Neptune are all going to be going over that. They're all going to hit that 29 Pisces, 0 Aries degree this year. And of course, the sun's going to hit that at a point. We'll get to that in the spring equinox, and then the Mercury and Venus retrogrades hit over that point. Then every month the moon hits on that point. It's like almost everything is going to hit. Like Jupiter, Mars, and Pluto are the only things that aren't going to hit that section of the zodiac this year. And everything else is going to cross over that point.
Yeah, I never even looked at it like that, but that's true. I mean, and they're aspecting it in some place or another. They're aspecting planets in that area, especially coming into the next year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Because Pluto is still at the super low degrees of Aquarius. So that's still kind of, a sextile to,
it hurts my brain when you say
Aries.
that. I'm injured in the brain. Stop. I can't handle it. It's the truth. I mean, I have a lot going on in the early degrees of Aquarius, so excuse me for the next 20 years.
I do have a quick Pluto and Aquarius story. So I have a Venus-Mars opposition at the low degrees of Taurus and Scorpio, and my nodes are around like 7 degrees Taurus and Scorpio. so my so
Pluto's
the
squaring
trans
by them. Yeah.
yeah, so transiting Pluto is square my Venus and my Mars, and will be square my node shortly. So my Pluto square to my Venus Mars opposition was my computer died, and I lost uh, a large portion of all the astrology research and work and stuff I'd put in to the last software I had, and so I'm having to rebuild. I'm having to rebuild all of my work and data and everything that I mean, I've still got notes and hundreds of papers and things and emails and stuff. So I'm going to be able to recover a lot of it. But to me too, that was instead of just, well, I mean, I got a little pissy about it, but instead of being too pissy about it, I realized that
Not as like countless
hopefully,
hours of work.
right. So too, like, how I'm hoping this plays out is that this is the universe showing me, some things maybe that I missed or went over too quickly or needed to revisit, and so by having to enter 89,000 charts back into this into my new computer, that this will point out some things to me that I was missing or some holes that that I need to fix.
I'm gonna have to show you how to save your data. At least some of it's from the program that we use. That way, at least if it ever happens again, you can recover.
Right.
It. Because oh my god, I would
And
cry. I really would cry if that happened to me. I think I would have a total meltdown.
Yeah, in all honesty too, I had junked up a lot of the last of the software from. I'd had so much info entered in there, and because I was in such a hurry when I first got it that I just started entering stuff, and so I already have, like, I see ways I can enter stuff a lot more efficiently and more organized. So even though it's going to be a ginormous pain in the butt, that should at least allow me to streamline some things.
Well, that's good. That's good. But that's a lot of, that's your life's work when you lose something like that. I did that many computers ago, and I was like, that won't happen again. And I just back everything up because pictures and all that. It's such a pain, It's like, that's the one good thing. I mean, I guess it could happen with physical, tangible things too, lose them or whatever. Right. Still, it's like, oh, it's just so much. I know, but maybe it's a rebirth for you too, right? So here you are, getting reborn.
Right. Yep.
Let me baptize you.
Yes. That will come out.
Water on you.
Right.
It's funny. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Venus station retrograde, that's what we talked about last. And I don't know, Venus retrograde, is it a positive? Would you say there's a positive thing to Venus retrograde, or do you think it's more just going internally to kind of understand what's going on inside of the heart or the soul? I have Venus retrograde in my natal chart. It's my chart ruler. So I don't know if I see it differently than other people do.
Yeah. So Venus is my chart ruler also.
Oh, that's true. It is. Yeah, I knew that.
So while it may not appear that way from the outside,
you need it retrograde. I got the Venus retrograde in Aquarius nonetheless. So that was the special part of it. So I'm super awkward. But your Venus is in zero. It's zero Taurus, right? So it's actually a nice place for
it. And my ascendant is Libra,
right?
Which is the other planet, other sign ruled by. Yeah. So I know everyone runs with the Venus is love and romance and stuff, and it is, but to me that's just an offshoot of it.
Yeah.
To me, the bottom line of Venus is what you value, what's important to you. You know, it's not necessarily just your relationships. It's like it's what you want out of your relationships, and that, you know, even with like coworkers and, you know,
Yeah, because
employees and people that come into your work and things. It's your morals and your value system. So I think with with things changing as rapidly as they are, and as like out of control fast as things are going to be going in a few months, I think the point of the Venus retrograde and the Mercury retrograde and the Mars retrograde and all the outer planets are going to retrograde this year. Everything except for Jupiter, which just went direct. So it'll, well, no, Jupiter will retrograde in the fall. Wrong on that. So to me, that a retrograde is a review process, because it's like, where are you spending too much time, energy, resources, money, too much time worrying or fretting over stuff? You know, what part of your day, what part of your routine are things that were born out of a situation from 23 years ago that no longer have relevance, and you need to restructure or re-examine what you do, and where can you get rid of junk and streamline things, because the whereas the last 5 years has just been like a boot standing on your face the whole time. This is going to be everything going a million miles an hour all at once. So you're gonna need to cut out waste, and where energy is wasted, and where you can streamline things. And I think that's the message of all these retrogrades this year, is everything pre 2020, when that timeline ended, that you want to bring in to the new world here, and to this new reality we're moving into. It's going to need a touch up or a coat of paint or a resewing. It's going to need something, because I've been very clearly shown, especially like the last month, that like anything, because you know you have your, I know I'm just ranting like a maniac now. So, so you know, you've got your stuff. You got stuff in storage or in your basement or out in the shed or whatever, and most of your stuff you don't touch most days. You have you touch your toothbrush every day, and your clothes and your phone and your computer. You know, you have your certain things that you touch every day. I've kind of found I'm seeing very clearly that I'm going to have to touch like all of my stuff. Like if I haven't done it in the last couple months, it's going to need to be touched or reorganized or thrown out or whatever, like to get it into the same. I know this is not making any sense at this point. To get it onto the same frequency that we're going to be on here. And there's like everything's going to need to be reorganized, or touched up and given new life, to get it to vibrate onto the same frequency that we're moving into.
that's a good
Did
point.
any of that make any?
No, that's
Did
a
any of
good.
that make any coherent sense?
Maybe it makes sense to my Venus retrograde self, but it does make sense because you're kind of going over the things that you value, like you said, and I think that is Venusian, however you say that. But I think that is something that maybe we all should do over different periods of time. And Venus only goes retrograde every 18 months or so, right? So it's not even always an every year thing. There's years that get skipped because
Yeah.
of the
Yep.
the cycle of it. But yeah, so is Mars slower to Mars is a little slower to retrograde. But yeah, sometimes there's a skip with Mars too, but those two, I mean, and they're very personal. So I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of like brushing up, making it a little, spruce it up, see if whatever you're dealing with is important or meaningful to you. If not, it's time to donate it or whatever you're going to do with it, because it doesn't belong to you in the next phase of your journey, right? Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
That's interesting. Okay, so we're moving into March, and then we are on March 3rd. Mercury goes into Aries. So here we go, Aries again. Mercury moves into Aries. There's our mental thought processes go from Pisces to Aries. I think this is so is our minds on fire at this point, Mark?
Right. And so just like the move from Mercury in Aquarius to Mercury in Pisces is like a sudden slamming on the brakes, then that's like a 3-week period to kind of sort through the cobwebs in the corners of your mind to see what you've forgotten, or what needs worked on, or what needs some help or some fresh air, breathed into it. And then the Mercury in Aries, you're going to find people are much more alert and ready to move forward and initiate new ideas and things.
Do you think this can have potential to make people like more feisty with their thoughts? Because the Aries is a little feistier than Pisces, of course. 100.
Same thing with the Venus in Aries. That's just everyone's just a little less patient.
That's a good way to put it. Less patient.
A little. Yeah, you have a few rungs lower on the patience scale.
A few rungs. Funny. It's a good way to put it, though. And people are just less patient. It's just a little bit. So agitation could be a thing. It doesn't necessarily mean it will, but it could be. The planet is colored by the sign that it's in. So we are coming to the middle of March. Are you ready? Do you have your seatbelt on? Please put your seatbelt on. I think it's up here. Make sure you strap yourself in so you don't fall out. Okay, the first thing.
It's not safe to move about the cabin.
Yeah, like I don't even know how they say it, but I've heard it a million times exactly. If the masks fall, put yours on first and then help your neighbor.
Right.
So this is March 14th. We have a lunar eclipse at 24 Virgo. So lunar eclipses, you are much better with the eclipse interpretations than I am. I've never dug as deeply into them because they scare me, honestly. I've had eclipses happen on planets or angles, and it's just never a good experience for me, or seen it with clients or people I know. It just always seems to be a difficult period of time if it's hitting something in your chart. Collectively, I don't know if that's much different because everybody's intertwined with everyone else. But what is your expertise on this?
Yeah, so when the nodes shift signs, like the North Node moved into Pisces in January, then the eclipses will move into the signs that the North and South Node are in. So the second eclipse in March is going to be in Aries, but that's the last eclipse of the last when the nodes were in Aries and Libra. So this is going to be the first eclipse of the nodes in Virgo and Pisces and Virgo. So this one, so for me, what stands out to this is the people born in 1965 to 1969, that area, most of them will have the Uranus-Pluto conjunction in Virgo, like at that late teens to mid-20s degrees. Everyone born in that time period is going to have the Uranus-Pluto conjunction there in late Virgo. So to me, that eclipse there. So I'm not really looking forward to that eclipse because that's hitting on my Uranus Pluto conjunction. Eclipses push things in the direction that they're already going. So I want to have things moving forward. Undoubtedly, this eclipse will bring up things that need changed. Just because that's Virgo. Virgo tends to bring out crisis situations because it points out the one of the purposes of Virgo is to point out what's not working properly and how it can be changed. And, how to change it. So to me, that eclipse is going to show us what's not working on both the micro and the macro levels.
That's interesting. And especially if you have planets in those later degrees. What is it at 24 Virgo? I don't have anything in Virgo or Pisces. But yeah. I do have my ascendant though that is like in an earth sign. So the same degree, it's like, I don't know. Life gets a little weird around eclipses. I've had people tell me so many stories that have to do with eclipses and themselves too. So, yeah. And this one seems to be more intense than others, right?
Yeah,
because of the Virgo.
I think this is going to be a huge eclipse. So and two, again, the events around eclipses don't necessarily happen that day. A lot of times there will be events around, but it's kind of that's the highlight of the window. But you might see stuff a few weeks beforehand, up to 6 months after. But it'll be things, of hitting those degrees where we see the big fallout or whatnot.
Yeah. What do you think that's gonna do, if anything, to like the collective world that we live in, outside of just our personal collective, but our governments and all the world changes that are going on? Do you think there's going to be something that comes up from these eclipses to shift something?
I do, especially this. Not that the second eclipse in March is in Aries. Not that those are going to be delightful, but I think that the March 14th eclipse, I think, is going to be much bigger than the March 29th one, which is the second one. Okay. I think this is probably going to be the big one. Just an obvious thing that could come up is just from politically what's been going on, is I could see some kind of change in the healthcare industry, just because Virgo rules health, and I can see so too this eclipse. So while the moon's going to be in Virgo, we're going to have the sun's going to be in Pisces. The North Node's going to be in Pisces. Mercury and Venus are both, or Mercury goes retrograde the next day. Venus is already retrograde. Saturn and Neptune are both in Pisces. And then Uranus is at 24 Taurus. So this eclipse is going to be trine Uranus with Mercury and Venus retrograde, or Mercury stationing and Venus retrograde, and then about 57 dudes in Pisces. So I don't I don't see this being a situation where it's like, boy, nothing happened during that eclipse. That's weird. I don't think that's what we're going to get. I think we're going to get action out of this one.
Yeah, and I mean during the around the eclipse too, the sun and Saturn are like very close together, and they're making that sextile to Jupiter in Gemini. I mean, there's
The square to Jupiter.
is it the square to Jupiter? I meant
Yeah.
Uranus. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I said the wrong planet.
Oh.
Sextile
Oh,
to
yes,
Uranus.
yes.
But I always think that Saturn and Uranus have issues. I know that it's
Yeah.
like it seems like because there's the desire for something solid and real, and then there's also the desire to be free, which is the Uranus part, and then we're mixing the sun in it, and so yeah, that's deep. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think it was when we were talking about the Uranus station, when it went station direct. Wasn't there some chaos that went on that day? I mean, I shouldn't even ask that question because chaos has happened every day this year.
That was the 87 plane crashes.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's crazy, wasn't it? It was really insane. It's like nuts.
Yeah.
That's the Uranus stations. It's terrifying.
Yeah. Uranus rules the skies. Uranus rules Aquarius. So Uranus rules the skies. And then Taurus rules the land. So there's so there's a square between Uranus and Taurus just by sign. There's a square between. I don't know if I said that right. Taurus and Aquarius is a square by sign. So having the ruler of Aquarius in the sign of Taurus, I mean that was.
It's been destabilizing.
Yeah, that's kind of that's kind of not a good match.
Yeah, it has been really unstable. I mean, and hello, they were in 2025, so we can say that in the last several years have been like crappy, to say the least. Okay, so that's the lunar eclipse in Virgo, and then we move on to the 15th, which is the following day. We have Mercury station retrograde at 9 Aries. Now, remember, Venus station retrograde at 11 Aries. So the people that are born in this degree time are really going to be feeling these Venus and Mercury station retrograde periods. So what kind of fun is going to go on here?
Yeah, so too, what's funny is so Mercury stations at 9 Aries, 13 days after Venus stationed at 11 Aries. We had talked previously about in July, Neptune's going to station at 2 Aries, and Saturn's going to station at almost at 2 Aries. So that's two set of planetary stations where both planets are going to station within like 10 days of each other at almost the exact same zodiac degree.
Weird.
That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. That's not a normal thing. You'll have planets stationed. Yeah. All 4 of those planetary stations are in the low degrees of Aries. That's I've not hunted that out, but I've never seen that before. That's weird.
It is. So people born in the beginning part of Aries will be feeling, this probably more than everybody, right?
Yeah. So I'd say that the people born, late March, very beginning of April, these are going to hit on your sun.
Yeah. It'll be something. Okay. So that stays for about 3 weeks, right? And then it goes direct again, which it will go back into Pisces in the time as well.
Yep, that's one of the ones we talked about. That's going to go from a fire sign back into a water sign. That's one of the what 4 planetary stations that are going to be at the end of Pisces, beginning of Aries, in the same freaking calendar year. This is a year of firsts. There's a lot of things that like you'd have to spend hours searching your ephemeris to find the amount of oddball stuff that we're getting all in 1 year this year.
Well, Pluto moving into Aquarius could not do it without the help of the rest of the planets being crazy.
Right.
I think it was like, I can't shine on my own. I need you guys to help me out here.
You need to join my criminal gang.
Bonnie and Clyde this place up. Oh my gosh. Okay.
If it wasn't for those kids, I'd have gotten away with it.
Right? It's funny. And then we move on further into March 20th. This is the new year. Yay. We're at 0. The sun is at 0 Aries, March 20th. So this is the mark of spring too. I can't believe we're already talking about spring. How did that happen? Like, it seems unbelievable to me. Did I skip something?
You didn't actually. I'd missed it. So I'll just fill here for a second and fill it in. So on the 19th, the sun is conjunct Neptune.
Oh.
So that's our 1 day a year where there's a Sun Neptune conjunction. This is so. I hate the calendar that everybody uses now. I am very much on board with. We've had this conversation many times on many shows. People are probably tired of hearing it from me. But I think March 19th, March 20th should be the new year, because 10 degrees of Capricorn is not a significator of change. 0 Aries is a significator of change and rebirth. So this year there's a Sun Neptune conjunction on the new year, on the equinox. We have a Sun Neptune North Node stellium on the new year. And when you add in on it, I'm looking at the wrong one.
They make a trine to the moon too.
So too, at that point, Venus has retrograded down to, it's at about 4 degrees of Aries. So it's conjunct that. Mercury has retrograded back to 8 degrees of Aries. So Mercury and Venus are conjunct, and they're not, I know we're looking at about like 9, 10 degrees of orb, but still where's the moon on that day?
The moon is trining, on the 19th it makes a trine to the sun and Neptune, and then comes the Venus and Mercury because it's in Sag.
Oh, okay. So yeah. There's a Sun, Mercury, Venus, Saturn, Neptune, North Node, stellium. Those are all between 23 Pisces and like 5 or 6 Aries. There
Wow.
I don't know, somewhere I posted a chart of that. I'll post it on my Facebook later or something. But that's a ridiculous, like, that is the universe directly pointing out something to you
Yeah. I
when
mean,
you
and
have
yeah, and if
on
you
the
go, sorry.
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if you go I just hopped ahead a day in the clock on the Sirius program. And if you go to the 23rd of March, you can see that the Neptune's at 29 degrees, the Venus is at 2, Sun is at 3, and Mercury is at 5. So that's like the beginning part of them actually making this really more tight conjunction that you were talking about.
Right,
So, and then of course the
right,
Venus in there at 27 degrees, but it's like it just keeps getting a little bit tighter. It's like the beginning part of that starting at our astrological new year, because that's the astrological new year, March 20th. So it's really interesting how that happens.
yeah. So having been alive the last 5 years, um,
Are you sure?
Neptune. Because,
Pulse?
um, Neptune is involved with deception. There's a part of the Pisces Neptune thing that has to do with deception. Like if you're wanting to deceive a large group of people, you want Neptune Pisces energy because most people will have a hard time figuring out what's going on.
Mm.
So having all those planets joined together around that degree, the very end, very beginning of the zodiac. I mean, that's kind of a big deal. Like, I'm I'm not saying there's going to be a fake alien invasion, hologram, drone, whatever. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying if I were going to do that, if I was going to portray a hoax on a large amount of people, I mean, what what energy would you pick? Like, what would be more potentially deceptive than that? Like,
Yeah,
if
that's a
you
good
wanted
point.
to get one by on people, I mean, you got 89 kajillion planets, like conjunct the very end of Pisces.
I
I,
don't know.
I don't I I don't think there's going to be a lot of truth coming out on that day. I think I'm just saying I'm skeptical of anything that comes out in the news like around that period.
So here's the thing. Okay. I think if you're not already skeptical about what's going on in the news, then I think you haven't been paying attention, maybe, because I think that we
Right.
should all know at this point that the news is a bunch of smoke and mirrors, right? Isn't that, don't you
Right.
feel that way? I feel that way, strongly feel that way, because
Right.
have you seen this
Absolutely.
before where you watch a clip of mainstream media, and when the first time I saw it was probably 2020 when all crazy stuff was going on, and then I got sucked into it because I don't watch the news. I didn't watch the news at that point because I just felt like, I don't know, I just felt like I was dissociated from the world in some way, which is crazy to think that way, but obviously I'm not. I would watch the news and I would watch a clip of someone talking about something, and it would be portrayed this one way. And then I would go and seek out that clip. I didn't do this right away. I started talking to some friends of mine. I'm like, oh my gosh, you see what so-and-so said about this and that? And it was like, oh, but did you see the whole thing of what that whole meeting was about, or whole conversation, press conference, whatever? And then when you go look at it, you see in the press conference, that's not at all what they were saying. It's like we're not, maybe not using AI to manipulate, but they were manipulating in the fact that they were misconstruing what the person was saying. So, I call that fake news. Fake news, like cats, mew, because it's not like, and I think we should all be aware of that. And that's one of the reasons I think that the news companies are panicking. People on YouTube get more views on some of their shows talking about the news than the mainstream media does. That speaks volumes to me. Kids, younger people, generations than us, do not even care about TV or cable. Like my kids, my daughter maybe a little more than my son, but my son doesn't care about cable or the stuff that our parents would have like focus in on. So I don't know. It's such a different world than what we grew up in. It's just, and I think that if we don't see that already, then it's going to be more jarring than if you kind of open your eyes to seeing it for when things are a little calmer, which I don't know if that's now. You should have probably done that 5 years ago. But
right.
Hey, no better time than the present if you're not starting to become aware of the nature of the beast, which is the reality we live in. I have had some experiences. I'll just do a little side quest here because this is an interesting experience that I had. It reminds me of Neptune and Pisces. So there is this thing called a sea oil, and I started taking it like last year because it's really good for your skin and it makes I like skin things, right? And I've been having really dry skin. So I'm like, look up what natural things can I do? And my doctor is like, oh, take this hormone. I'm like, I'm not taking your hormone, dude. Like, no, I'll go through this. And so I researched all this stuff. I found out there's this thing called sea buckhorn, and I didn't even ever hear about it before. So you buy it in the little pills and you take it. And I'm telling my mom, because for my birthday, she gave me some like face cream, and I go over to her house and I sit down and I'm like sitting with my back to the TV because I'm like, I hate the TV. I just don't want to like hear it even, but people do what they do. They watch TV. So I want to talk to her. I'm sitting like kind of with my back to the TV because we were on our little porch and there was like a lot of room anyway. And I'm like, oh, she's like, how was the face cream? And I'm like, oh, it was great. I said, but I've been taking these like things like sea buckhorn oil. And she's like, what is that? And I start telling her it's like this fruit that they found that's like, looks like grapes. It's like orange, like grapes, And like no sooner did I say that I hear the guy on TV who wasn't even listening to talking about this oil, because I didn't know until I turned around, but he was talking about this oil that they were trying to sell, like it was a QVC program. And he's like, it has sea buckhorn oil in it. And I was like, wait, what did he say? And I'm looking at my mom and I'm like, what did he say? And she's like, what are you talking about? Because she was focusing on me. And I'm like, wait, what? And then he says it again. And I turn around and I look at the TV and there's a picture of the plant that I had. And my mom's like, oh, that looks like, my little milk flower because of the butterfly milkweed. And I'm like, no, mom, that is actually sea buckhorn oil. And they were trying to sell it. But like the point of that is that we don't realize how quickly we're actually transmitting the thoughts that we have that actually are coming into the material world. And we have this, everybody's experienced with your phone. So you talk about sea buckhorn oil, you might hear this and now you're going to see it everywhere, right? That's the mandala effect, which is even a crazier part of the story, which was 5 minutes before that conversation with my mother. I go over to my brother's. He lives next door to my mom. And I'm like talking to my sister-in-law, we're really close and we're just talking about something. I don't remember what it was, but we were talking about something. And she goes, oh, it's the mandala effect. And I'm like, oh, what is that? And I start looking it up. The mandala effect is like when you have something and you never see that something, like sea buckhorn oil, and all of a sudden you hear about it and then everybody has it. It's everywhere. It's like this mandala effect that happens to just keep replicating, and that happens everywhere. So for instance, the car I drive, I had no idea those cars even existed. This is years ago when I got it, and my son is like, hey, get this car, you'll look cute in it, mom, you'll like this and that. And I'm like, okay. So I get this car, and now everywhere I go, I see this car. So it just happens, that mandala effect. So I think it's important too, when you think about all this Piscean energy, and this is the reason I started telling this story. But when you think about all that Pisces energy, we are manifesting and creating that which we're actually living. So be careful what you're thinking, be careful what you're actually putting your intention to, because I think that, all of this stuff that we're talking about for March is and Pisces beginning Aries stuff is exactly that. We're going from something that is more in tune with the environment around you, which is the Piscean energy, into that which is initiation, which is Aries. So, being mindful of that, and making sure that your mind is in the direction of where you want it to go, as opposed to like worry, fear, stress, anxiety. I know I say, oh, I'm worried about this or that, here or there, but I think I always tell myself that too, and like bring it back to, what do you want to create? What is it that you want to make in your life, so that you're not like pushed around by other things that are, I don't know, keeping you in different directions. So, okay, I'll get off my soapbox here, but that was something I wanted to share, because I feel like all this Pisces energy, all these planets, 2011 Pisces planets, I don't even know, there's so many of them that are going on. I think that's all giving us a chance to tune into that, and materialize that which we want, as opposed to that which we do not. What do you
I think Pisces rules manifestation. So I think being able to manifest things is Pisces, and then Aries is the actual birthing process.
That makes sense too. Is the action behind the manifestation. Yeah. It's really interesting. It really is. It's amazing. Okay, so then we have, after that Neptune Sun conjunction, the Sun moves into Aries. That is our new initiation. We talked a little bit about that. We move on a little bit further in the month into March. March 27th, we have Venus entering into Pisces, joining the club over here, because it's retrograde at this point, going back to 29 degrees of Pisces. So this is a meaningful one here. It's crossing back into the illusionary mindfulness of Pisces, the illusionary idealistic view of Pisces. So I don't know, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, well, actually you can add in the next one also on the 29th.
Oh yeah,
Mercury, which is retrograde.
Goes back into Pisces.
So we've got a Mercury, Venus, Neptune, like exact stellium. Like they're all at 29 Pisces at that point. That's crazy. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's been Venus, Mercury conjunctions to Neptune, but like those are exact, and Venus and Mercury are both retrograde. They're both retrograde and at the same degree, and they're conjunct Neptune.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I don't know when the last time that's ever happened, but that's got to be a while since we've had Venus and Mercury both retrograde and conjunct Neptune.
Yeah.
So to me, that is having Mercury and Venus retrograde and conjunct Neptune. That's reaching like into the depths of your subconscious for something, something that you've forgotten, or some untapped ability, or some crazy psychic intuition or something. That's
and that happens.
That's a rarity to have that.
It really is. And then that happens on the same day that we have the solar eclipse, right? That is on
Yes.
at 29 Pisces. March. Is it? No, it's not. Sorry, it is at 9 Aries. Is that correct?
Yeah. And so you notice too, with these themes, there's that eclipse at 9 Aries, which is within a degree of where Venus and Mercury stationed, where they went retrograde. So there's a solar eclipse within, what is that? Well, within the same month, there's an eclipse at the same degree that Venus and Mercury just stationed retrograde.
Yeah,
What the hell's that? That's not normal. That, I mean, like, it's almost impossible to predict what's going to happen with all this stuff. But that's crazy. You don't. That's crazy.
I agree. It's wild. And I mean, in terms of prediction, I think, like you said, the first eclipse seems a little bit more intense than the second eclipse, and maybe that's the Venus, Mercury, and Neptune coming into play too, where things are not quite as difficult. They might be challenging, but not as difficult as the first eclipse, the lunar eclipse. Wow.
Yeah. So
That's going to be an interesting day, that's for sure. And anybody that has planets at 9 Aries, boy, I don't know. I would like to talk to them.
Yeah. I mean, and that. I mean, really. Um, my goodness. That March 14th up through the end of April is it's all just different flavors of clown world. It's like that the clown ice cream truck has come to town, and it's just dealing out clown flavored ice cream of different flavored clowns. That's, I mean, it's, these are like, how many times did I, just for just for the second half of March, they'll be like, when's the last time that happened? I mean, it's like, you've got, forget the same year. I mean, there's tons of other weird things this year, but I mean, that's in a 2.5 week period. It's just a
Yeah.
succession of, man, that's definitely pointing to something.
Yeah, and like you said, it's in the deeper parts of the south because it is Mercury and Venus and Neptune. So it's pointing to the deeper parts of the south. So it's time to dig deep or float on a cloud and feel what is going to come to you. But like put some intention behind it. I think that would help. The direction would help movement for yourself. Interesting.
Yeah, and I think too all the Venus and Mercury being retrograde and conjunct the Sun and Neptune and all that stuff. I I think whatever happens relating to the March 14th eclipse, I think at at the very minimum we'll have to review what really happened or how real the things were that happened around the eclipse there. So I think we're when I see that the retrograde, the review part of that is like having to relook at some things and figure out like actually like what happened. And
Yeah, like the whole JFK and what's his name's Epstein's list, or I don't know. There's so many different things that are supposed to be uncovered in the future, in the near future. Maybe they will be.
yeah,
Who knows?
here's the thing. This is how crazy things are. They just released documents admitting that there is a second shooter on JFK, and no one's really talking about it. Like, I mean, that's the biggest, conspiracy topic of the last, 55 years. And like, it's like everything's so crazy right now that people are just like, oh yeah. I'm like, what? That's something I never thought that they would release, that we'd ever see the like actual documents of and stuff. And it's like people are not even like the news and stuff isn't even talking about it. Like they're just,
well, you don't expect the news to be reporting certain things, do you? I don't. I expect the news to not report certain things or try to like cover things up just because that's the nature of the news, really.
right. But news is actually propaganda.
Was it the driver? Because I saw that there was some papers, but I didn't see what it was because I was like, oh, I can't look at this right now. I was just like not in the headspace to look at it.
I've been between everything else and trying to get my computer going. I did not have the ability to sit down and give it a good read.
Yeah.
I'll have to.
Yeah, I figured it will always be there, but I would like to know the answer to that too. I would also like to know about Epstein's list. That's more current, and that makes more sense because a lot of those people could still be alive, you know?
Right.
I would like to see that come to light. Okay, so our last exciting transit for March is March 30th. Neptune moves into Aries. Da, 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 da. It seems appropriate that this is the last transit we're going to talk about.
Right.
It's like, it's appropriate. It's like, here I am in Aries now on the 30th of March. Wow. Oh my God. So we, unfortunately, Mark and I met many moons ago, and we were already doing videos and maybe audios at the time. We met on Blog Talk Radio, which I was disappointed to hear and see that I think it was January 31st or something. Blog Talk Radio is no more. We did a lot between us. We did a lot of videos. We were both doing our audios. We were both doing our own little shows, and I think a mutual friend connected us. And anyway, so I don't know, where was I going with this story? Oh, because we did a show when Neptune moved into Pisces. Remember that? And that was like 14 years ago. Was it 14 years ago or 12? I'm not sure.
It was
actually look.
It was 2010 or it was
12.
It was 2010 or 2011.
Okay. Yeah.
It was 2010 or 2011.
Yes, and
I think it was when Fukushima happened.
Yes, that's right. It was. And we coined the idea of Neptune in Pisces as pink fluffy clouds. So now I need to know, Mark, what is Neptune in Aries? It's not pink fluffy clouds anymore. I'm sorry. That one's got to go.
It's probably going to be blood red clouds.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, I don't know if that's scary or not. It probably is, but it'll be interesting because Neptune will stay in the sign for quite some time now. It happens on the 30th, right? Yeah. I'm curious how long it stays. Do you know how long it stays into Aries for?
Just a few months.
Well, oh yeah,
it's just so too, another part of this that we've talked about on other shows, but Saturn has been in the low to middle degrees of Pisces, and at this point, Saturn is just starting to really catch up to Neptune, because Saturn's direct and it moves way faster than Neptune. So now the next part of this is Saturn is going to be conjunct Neptune, and it's not going to be exactly conjunct till next year, but once we get into the middle part of this year, Saturn and Neptune are going to be very close together. And then they're both going to station right at 2 degrees Aries within 10 days of each other in early July. So that's a whole nother variable. And they're both got Saturn and Neptune, when they station in July, they're going to be sextile to Pluto.
Oh.
And yeah, there's going to be when we get into,
and they're sextile to Uranus as well, because Uranus is at 0 degrees of
right.
Well,
so
actually,
when we get into like early July, Saturn's at 2 Aries, Neptune's at 2 Aries, Uranus is at 0 Gemini, and Pluto's at 3 Aquarius. So we have looking at the planets now with everything in, Pisces and Taurus, except Pluto's in Aquarius. I mean, we get into July, which is just 5 months from now,
Mm-hmm.
4.5 months from now, we've got all four of the outer planets in tight aspect to each other, all in masculine signs.
Mm.
I mean, we got two exactly conjunct in Aries, almost exactly conjunct in Aries, and then we've got a Uranus-Pluto trine. We're in it. That's a 5 months from now is a completely 100% different world than we're in right now. It is a different world we're in. Now, three of those four are going to retrograde back in the fall for us to, revisit and do final touches on things. But that middle part of the year is going to be our movie preview for like what the future is going to look like.
Interesting. So not to, because
Yeah.
I know we've talked about this a little bit, and we're not talking about it yet because it's not happening in March, but the Saturn Neptune, is that right? Or does it happen in another, is it a different time? Do you know?
It happens at zero. It happens at 0 Aries, and it's like February, I think, of next year.
Okay. Because they go retrograde.
Or-
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
everybody goes retrograde in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Back into the Uranus will go back into Taurus, Saturn and Neptune will go back into Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
And then next year is the full-on onslaught of all those in the masculine signs.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a crazy month. It's going to be, no, but I mean, if you think about it, when you think about Saturn and Neptune, I always think about the spiritual seeker, the one that's trying to materialize God. Materialize, is that the right word? To put form to God. So I always think that the two of them are, that doesn't mean that they are easy to deal with, but they're, it's a shift from what we're doing right now. I guess that's where I want to go with it.
Yeah, totally.
So
totally.
I think that this March is going to be another one of those Marches like 2020 was. I saw the best meme in March, and it was like, today is March 97th or something like that.
Yeah.
That was in 2020.
Yeah.
That sounds appropriate because that was when all the crazy stuff started happening in the world. But yeah, I did want to say this too. Neptune stays in Aries while it goes retrograde a couple times back and forth, the Aries Pisces energy, but it stays in Aries till 2038. So it'll be there for a while. Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. No, yeah. By time we get there, I mean we don't even have bodies at that point. We're just holograms that move around with a pen flashlight.
I won't say it because I don't want to put it out into the world, but yes, there's too much of that I've heard lately that I don't want to even put out in the world. But yeah, if you look around the internet, you might find some interesting things about that. So this was fun. Thank you for coming with me as always. I enjoy doing shows with you. Do you want to leave us with anything else? Any wisdom, Mark wisdom, until we see each other again in April or for April's show?
No, I think I probably gave everybody too much already. More than they wanted.
I signed up for. This was supposed to be some interesting, fun astrology stuff. Wait, what? All right. Well, thanks for watching if you guys made it, and we'll see you on the next one.